Thank you for joining us today. We are here with Webster University cross country coach Dan Graver to talk about the SLIAC women's cross country all decade team. How are you doing today, Dan?
Doing great. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. My first question for you, if you look back on this last decade, 7 of the SLIAC individual titles went to just 3 runners. It all started with a pair of Principia runners in Casey Powell and Sarah Litweiler, who won back-to-back titles. Your first year at Webster was also the first year that Sarah won the first of her titles. What do you remember about Sarah? And then also, can you tell us a little bit about how hard it is to repeat as a champion?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult, and especially Sarah's first year, Sarah Litweiler's first year that she won in 2013 was probably individual-wise up front, I would say the most competitive that the conference has been this decade. There are 4 runners up front in Sarah, Alyssa Toner, Sarah Kostner. And so for her to win in dominating fashion against that field for her first conference title was really impressive. And then the next year to repeat that, I think she won by 30 seconds or more both years. And both years she was also in the top 30 in the region, which is a really tough feat to accomplish in our region. So I think she had great coaching from Chuck Wilcoxon, who was the Principia coach at the time. He always had his runners ready to run their very best in October and in November. And she was just on another level, I think, than the other runners in the conference. She definitely must have put in the work in the off season, and she was always ready to roll at conference time and regional time, like I said. And I know that our top runners, both of those years that she won, Heather Heisey, Valerie Martin, they were in exceptional shape and did all the work and everything. Were ready to run their best at conference time. And especially her second title, Litweiler's second title, Valerie Martin really did everything she could to try and run with her, tried to run with her for as long as she could. And it was impossible. Like I said, she was on another level. So she was a really impressive runner to watch, and really cool to see her have success like she did. And I think she was also her team's selection of all sportsmanship team. You could tell that the entire team respected her and looked up to her, and that she treated her teammates and competitors well too. So she was the type of person you really like to see succeed.
You just mentioned one of your runners, Valerie Martin. That brings me to my next question for you. She, in 2015, broke that string of repeat runners with the SLIAC title in 2015, becoming just the second Gorlak and first since 1993 to win a SLIAC individual title. What do you remember about Valerie?
Well, for Valerie, the big things were that she was willing to learn, and she was very coachable. She was new to the sport in college. She didn't run in high school as a distance runner in either cross country or track. I think that's pretty rare to have someone with no background coming in and then work to the level that she was able to work herself to and develop into a conference champion. So those were the big things with her, just being new to it, being willing to learn, and being willing as a new runner to go through some of the obstacles that every distance runner has. In distance running, even on your easy days, your easy run days, you suffer a little bit. It's not, doesn't always feel good. And so for her to persist through all the challenges that you have as a runner and to succeed like she did was really impressive. She had a swimming background, and obviously there was talent there. She wouldn't have gotten to the level that she did, but I think a lot of it was her consistency and hard work over time as well. And she was also a great student. I think she finished with over a 3.8 GPA as a biology major. And so a lot of her qualities that made her a great student as well, and her focus there and intelligence kind of carried over to her training and racing as well.
Sure, that focus and that dedication, no doubt, played a role. Last year, Cali Linthicum also took home a title for the Webster program. What made Cali such a good runner?
I think there's 2 things with Cali. Well, I think there are a lot of things, but 2 major things that I've seen in her are that her consistency in training over time and her willingness to work hard over time really throughout the calendar year has been something that's led to her success. So just being willing to put in the work. And she's someone that really doesn't miss any planned days of training. Um, she's almost someone you have to kind of like hold back in training just to make sure that she doesn't go too fast or do too much. There's not really been any magic. We're not doing anything magic in our program with the training. There's not any sort of magic workout she's done or anything like that. But it's just been consistency over time and her willingness to work really hard. And then the other thing is just being able to get to the point where she's able to mentally free herself on race day and run to her fitness level. That's been, I think, something that she's had to kind of learn as she's gone along, and she's worked really hard at being able to just kind of go out and run and not overthink the race too much or put too much pressure on herself. And that's really hard to do. I think it's maybe harder the harder you train, because you know all the work you put in, you don't want to let yourself down or see it all go to waste. So getting to that point in the big races at conference and regionals and being able to really run to her fitness level has taken a lot of mental work as well, as far as just being able to, like I said, free herself on race day and just run to her fitness level and not think she has to reinvent the wheel to have a good day.
Right. A lot of times when you're such a talented runner and so having such success, it's hard to maintain that level. So, yeah. We've mentioned a couple of repeat winners, but there's been only one runner in conference history to win a SLIAC individual title 3 times. That is Westminster's Jessica K. Kundle. What made her such a special runner?
I think a lot of times when people look at a runner like Jessie, especially when they're at the height of their success, when they're winning conference titles, getting all region honors and things like that, people think, well, that comes really easy for that person. They must just be supremely talented. And there does have to be some talent there to succeed at the level she succeeded at. And but also I think people forget that her first year in the conference, she was 10th in the conference, and then 225th in the region. And then all of a sudden, you know, she develops into someone who can't be beat in the conference. Really, no one's even close to her. And then she's finishing, I think she finished in the top 25 in the region. So from 225th in the region her first year to top 25, that's a world of difference. And there's a lot of hard work that must have went on in between those two periods of time. So I think that she's someone that worked really hard to have all of her success, and she was also a really smart runner and was willing to really hurt on race day. And I think those were the big things with her that led to her string of successes at the conference and the regional level.
Yeah, you just mentioned about how a runner can, really train and, get better throughout their career, collegiate career. That brings me to my next question. I want to ask you about a couple of runners that made all conference honors all 4 years that they were in college, and that's Greenville's Brook Goodyear and Spalding's Kelsey Phillips. What do you remember about those pair of runners?
Right, yeah, those two did it, and I think we've had 2 alums, Heather Heisey and Holly Gergen, that have done it. So I think for runners to have that level of consistency as far as racing goes, and at the end of October is really difficult. It's really difficult not to have one year where you're sick or you have some nagging injury or something like that happens the week of the race or the month before the race that kind of disrupts your training, and so you're not where you want to be when the championship races are there where you really want to perform. And so a lot of it is, I think, for student athletes is making it through the semester with all their academic responsibilities. And like for Heather Heisey and Holly Gergen, they both worked off-campus jobs, so they have all kinds of stresses that are going on in their life besides the training and racing. And so making it through the semester every year to the end of October to where you're able to run at your very best takes a lot of hard work and discipline, not just with your running, but everything outside of practice that goes into it, sleeping enough, eating well, and also doing the work to keep your stress levels low so you're not just like mentally burnt out by the end of the season. And I know that for both Heather and Holly, and I don't know the other two as well. Obviously, I didn't coach them, but I think that for runners to accomplish that 4 years in a row, they've had to have worked very hard and had a lot of discipline, not just at practice, but in their entire lifestyle and their approach towards collegiate running. So I know that Heather and Holly both did that. I'm sure that that Brook Goodyear and Kelsey Phillips, and she was like dominating at the conference level for a while. So it wasn't like she was just all like barely all conference. She was like the front of the conference for 4 years. So to do that, a lot of discipline every year, the entire calendar year for 4 years, and then at practice and outside of practice as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, Dan, when you look at this all-decade list of names, are there any runners that kind of stick out in your head that you really enjoyed, watching compete?
I think all of them. It's a competitive conference. There are strong coaches in the conference, and there have been a lot of runners that I've been impressed with, and there have been a lot of battles up front. Also, a lot of people maybe don't realize like there's a lot of battles not just at the front of the race, but for first team all conference and second team all conference. There's a lot of runners, their main goal is to just like get into the first team all conference or get into the second team all conference or finish in the top 20. So around conference championship time in cross country, it's always a time where there's a lot of drama, excitement going into the race, because you know that all those individual runners have specific goals that they want to attain, and all the teams have goals they want to attain as well. Championship cross country racing is, I think, one of the best things, one of the most exciting things, at least from my perspective. I'm biased, obviously. I'm a cross country coach, but hopefully we can get back to it at some point. It's hard to be without it this fall, but one of the coolest things you can experience, I think, as a student athlete and as a coach.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining and exciting, when you're lined up along that final chute, when they're coming out, towards the finish line there at the end of the races, and watching them kick in that final burst, to try and, get that first team or to win the race with the other runners right by them and just trying to beat them to the line. It's always super exciting to watch. So I totally agree with that. So
for sure.
Well, Dan, thank you for joining us today to talk about the last 10 years of SLIAC women's cross country. We really appreciate it.